Hello, everyone. I want to do a quick review video for the Part 2 exam, the exam on Hobbs, Locke, and Russo. I thought it was a pretty straightforward exam in terms of just asking about very sort of fundamental things about these authors. I just want to tell you what I had in mind in terms of answers for each question. Obviously, again, even a straightforward reading exam like this, whoever's grading it has to exercise judgment. Because at the end of the day, what you're judging is whether the student has a grasp of, whether they've demonstrated a grasp of the issue that you brought up. And that is not always as completely clear. So you have to exercise judgment, a lot of half credit, things like that. I should say that I added half a point to every, because of that, in particular, this exam, I added a half a point to everybody's score, which is significant in a 5-point, it's 10%, significant in a 5-point exam. So just to maybe allow for that need to exercise judgment and the possibility of exercising wrong judgment. So again, but if you have any questions after you watch this video about how I graded your exam in terms of the right answer, but please watch the video first. Please contact me. In Hobbs, what is the Leviathan? Well, the Leviathan is the state. That's pretty straightforward. The sovereign, some way or another, the government. That's his name for it. And explaining that is great. You know, that he's trying to get this sense of size and might and power for various reasons. But the Leviathan is basically the state, the sovereign. Number 2, what does Hobbes think the state of nature is like? It's a state of war. It's a miserable state. It's the state of the war of everyone against everyone else, in which there can be no culture or civilization because people are in a constant state of struggle for mere survival. So it's a very negative view of this so-called state of nature. Of course, the state of nature is the state of human beings in which the Leviathan doesn't exist, in which there is no state to restrain them. Number 3, how does Locke's view of the state of nature differ from that of Hobbes? There's many ways to go about this, but I think the easiest way or the shortest way to get at it is Locke's belief in a law of nature that governs the state of nature, and reason being that law, which indicates that, yes, there are problems of people harming each other in the state of nature, according to Locke, but essentially, human beings are rational creatures who know that they at least shouldn't do that. And that's a big difference between him and Hobbes. Hobbes believes there is no such thing as justice or morality or ethics or any kind of law in the state of nature. So people are basically allowed to do whatever they want. And Locke rejects that. That was, I think, the straightest path to contrasting these two, at least based on the readings that we did. But there were other ways too. Question 4, according to Locke, what is the end or purpose of government? Well, he says it is the protection of property. But it's important to note what he means by property. He does mean things, what he calls our estates, our private property, but he also means our health, our life, and our liberty. So government is meant to protect all of those things. Some people want that in terms of rights and things like that, which is okay. But what he actually says is the purpose of government is the protection of property, property widely understood in that more expansive sense. Finally, question 5, according to Russo, what problem is he trying to solve and what is his solution? Well, of course, no, I don't know, of course, but the problem he's trying to solve is that human beings are born free and they need to be free, but they also need the security of government. But government restricts their freedom. So how can they have both? How can they have the natural freedom? How can they preserve the natural freedom that they're born with, but also have a government which restricts that, freedom, which would seem to, make them unfree? How can they enjoy the protection of government? So that's the problematic is, how do you remain free under government? And his solution is the social contract, which is pretty much the answer, but I would have liked to see some explanation of why, right? The social contract supposedly is an answer to this, a solution. And the key is that his idea of the general will as created by the social contract, so that each person is both subject and sovereign. So in obeying the law of the state, you are simply obeying yourself, which is the key idea in Rousseau. So again, yes, I graded it, I hope, fairly, and I added a half a point because I just felt that that was appropriate in this case. So, people scores were actually pretty high. So if you have any questions about how I graded it, feel free to contact me. Obviously, I could have made a mistake. So we'll take a look at it together if you want.